Right, I know we've been working with this plan and time is becoming of the essence. I returned to this plan, first of all, to create some more space. Once we started thinking this column had to be here, this was getting tight in here. It was 2 foot 11 and a half from the siding to the finish of that column. And so the first thing I did is I just pulled this garage down 6.5 inches to widen this out to 5 foot 4, and this gives us about 40 inches between here, maybe 42 even. And also, after talking to Rich, I eliminated this wall and we only need this one here for where the drop is, and then put these wooden stairs in. So I made those modifications first, but this beam continued to, I wanted to see what else could be done with that. So I returned for that as well. But I came up with one more solution for this beam situation that we're dealing with back here. This is where we are now with these piers, pedestals down here, wooden steps going up, where it looks something like this, and walking through it is something like this. And as you know, it's where we have these columns coming down here. But this is what I've come up with. It's a little bit changes here, but this is a couple, these end up as being 2x8s, being able to be a couple 2x8s going across here, supporting this end of the beam, being able to eliminate that column for sure. And then on this side, this tests out to 2 5.5s LVLs, and there's enough space to get those in there and sit on top of this beam down here, which this beam down here doesn't change. These actually, like I said, I'll show you here, they become 2 2x8s, and these are the 2 5.5s, which you just buy an 11 1/4 and split that in half. Now this, I don't know if this is what they'll accept. We can't use regular members here. These have to be LVLs, and so a 12 footer is about $125. And I don't know if this is less headache to put this situation together and eliminate those columns, or if it's just easier to leave it the way it is. But I do like getting rid of the columns in any event. But there's no reason for them not to, and I hate to have an engineer stamp something for $300 or $400 or whatever it would take, but there's no reason for them not to accept this as a solution. It's a common thing to do, where this work down here just goes away because it's not needed. And here's how these beams, I wanted to cover this real quick, here's how these beams work. These two red lines is the subfloor in that bedroom there. And so those beams there, because they have to penetrate the wall and go in and sit on that basement wall, they have to enter below that subfloor. And so those, I just dropped them down here and put a plate on top, and that's supporting that end of that beam B, the LVL, the 14-inch LVL. This is, you know, your 10-inch or 9.5 or whatever those are there. So there's your bearing plate inside, and you have to block down to that and then make sure that it's solid all the way to the floor. But these are these wooden stairs put in here with the new wall here to hold that end of that, and this line here is your 80-inch code clearance. So here it was showing as high as possible with, these are a couple 5.5-inch LVLs, which you could do that as well, buy a 14-incher for, I don't know, $130, and just use 5.5-inch LVLs and keep them up there. But as it is, 2x8s will do that, and these are 2x8s. And so then it's a case, I'm showing siding on each side of that, just up to the ceiling on both sides. And I don't know, because of this siding here, I don't know if you'll be able to start it right here, or if that needs dropped to the next logical course. But if it does, you still are clearing that 80-inch clearance. And this guy, he is 6'5", and you can see that there's no problem with him bumping his head or anything. And on the other side, it's a similar situation. This red dashed line is your 80-inch clearance line. So it's a close call over here. And the one thing I can't really account for in these is the interface of this siding, whether those are going to align. And so if there's going to be an issue where it doesn't work out, it's going to be here. They can only go as low as that interior wall plate in here. I mean, it's not out of the realm, I suppose, that they could go in and drop a little bit lower. But it doesn't really matter, because out at this end they have to stay above these two 2x10s. And we have to keep them as low as possible so that this does not penetrate the roof here. Trimming that off at that angle there is just within code, as long as the trim doesn't get past the inside face of this beam. So that can be done at this end. There is probably also room to lift this beam up 1.5 inches or so, and then plate these rafters up that same 1.5 inches, which will bring that roof plane, the surface of that and the sheeting, above this entirely, and then this still sits dead on the beam A 2x10s down here at the south end. And so if we finish it like this, with beam D over here at the bottom of this course of siding where it has to be approximately, and then that one the same way with the siding on both sides of it. If we elect to only eliminate the column that comes down in the stair in the pathway and leave that one in place, this is a quick look of how that feels. And I've only done the bare minimum with that beam C at that end, just covering it with aluminum and leaving it open overhead like that. And these are the the members passing this Weyerhaeuser's software, with the beam C at the east end being 2 pieces of southern pine. It does have to be number 1. Number 2 won't pass, or it can be 2 5.5-inch LVLs, 2 7.5-inch LVLs, but the minimum is 2 2x8 southern pine number 1. And on that left end, on the west end, beam D is the 2 5.5s. There's the load coming down from beam B, from the roof beam. Same thing over here. And it also has no effect on beam A down at the low end, at the south end, where this is the end of beam D, the bearing on that. And this still passes with a couple pieces of number 2 southern pine 2x10. So this then is a little progression through those changes, how it affected it. For one thing, that LVL doesn't need to come all the way to the end here. So there is beam B, the LVL, 14-inch LVL, and that column has been eliminated with that beam going across from that wall in the garage wall. And then when I do the rest of the changes, that's just putting aluminum cladding back on everything. But this is adding beam C at the west end with that little leg of 4x4 going up and holding up the rest of aluminum clad beam B. That end is still beam C, it's just wrapped in aluminum here, and then I just add the siding on both sides, and you can see this one's still finishing high here, and then I just drop that as well, so those are the same, and maybe that aluminum cladding is more to match the siding, something like this. There's the 6.5 Walter, and at night. And so those are the changes. We can either eliminate one or both of those columns, and I don't know, I would think that the costs on those are going to be possibly even less doing it with eliminating the columns rather than having to do all this cladding work here. And plus, certainly I'd like to eliminate that one, since that's just a couple 2x8s across there, which has to be less than expensive than all of this, including its foundation work. So let me know, and I can have these ready to go. I can still apply for the permit at some point tomorrow, which is Friday. And we'll just end it with a quick walkthrough with both columns eliminated and everything in place as it's shown here. So thanks very much, and hopefully this is helpful.